My name is Chirantan Patnaik. I have worked in the investment banking space for about 6 years and a half. I was fortunate to have met the team at Reach Ivy who've helped me articulate this dream and has now culminated into me being a student again. Right from targeting the right schools to probably the most intense brainstorming sessions that resulted in insightful essays that brought out my unique characteristics. Vibha has been tremendously involved all throughout my application and helped me to build up a competitive candidate package for the schools to consider. She's been more than a personal mentor and a friend, and I'm glad to have met her at an important juncture in my professional life. Thanks, Vibha, and everyone at the Reach Ivy team. I'd like to now ask Vibha to join me on stage.
I'm going to start by introducing the speakers for this afternoon. Our first speaker is Mr. Manish Chokhani. Mr. Chokhani obtained a bachelor's degree in commerce from Sydenham College and an MBA from the London Business School. He is the MD and CEO of Axis Capital. Our second guest today is Mr. Prateek Agarwal. He graduated with a degree in business from the Wharton School in 2003 and has an MBA from the London Business School. Post the MBA, he founded Vedanta Group's infrastructure initiative with significant investments in ports, power transmission, and broadband networks. I'm going to start with a question for you, Mr. Agarwal. So I really believe that our younger years sets the foundation for who we're going to become going forward. So can you take us back to your early years, to your childhood, early school years, and just throw some light on how that has now culminated into the individual you are today?
But I think those first 10 years in Pune were really important in figuring out how the social value system in India really works.
We want to reflect a little bit about your school life. You went to Hindi Vidya Bhavan.
Most honest confession, until I went abroad for my MBA, I had no clue there's something called the stock market. I was too busy playing cricket in school, and I was head boy in the school, and I was just too busy with my studies to worry about the afterlife.
At Reach Ivy, we get inquiries all the time. Parents have this query about leaving right after the 10th to go abroad to study as you did. In hindsight, do you think it was the right decision, and do you recommend, with the new influx of IB schools here in Bombay, do you still recommend that people go abroad to study?
I don't think I can say generalize that is good for everyone. It's really a very, very personal choice that the parents and the child should make together at what point to go. I can say that the IB system is superior.
Management, when we do our management cycle, we call it, you set your targets, then you plan how you want to achieve it, then you actually execute it, and then you review it. And this is what these children were doing in school. So imagine that edge if you're starting at the age of, in the 8th standard, learning in this method. All of us who went through SSC and ICSE and we go and learn it at MBA, we are already 10 years behind these guys.
Lots of people in the audience who have family businesses and are at the cusp. Do we still need the MBA? We're not looking to go get a job abroad. Do you think the MBA still added value, and in what ways?
And one way that I thought I can maybe leapfrog the curve, especially in the areas of leadership, management, really dealing with people, which could otherwise take 10 years in the normal course of way. I thought that I could leapfrog that by an MBA, which is what I did.
At Reach Ivy, obviously, since we're an education advisory, we strongly recommend that people read and keep adding to their reading list. In fact, we publish an annual reading list to send out to students. Can you tell us about one book that has had profound impact on you?
I can't say there's one specific book. There's a stage at which certain books make sense, and then you keep moving on. That unless you're constantly finding new doors to push, your brain's going to stagnate over there. And it's not just about books. I come home every weekend. I have a stack of magazines that thick, which I'm scanning. And the MBA helps at that because you don't need to read everything cover to cover. You need essential information quickly. And if you have a working hypothesis in your head where it fits in and it proves or disproves something, you can accelerate your learning a lot.
At this point, what I've been consistently reading, say, for about 12 months, is actually Harvard Business Review. It's not a book, but it's very, very cutting edge.
So why LBS?
So I've got two things fairly clear, that I don't want to be in a large factory production system where 600, 700, 800 students are coming out. And if you need to reach the professor, you stand in the queue. Number two, the international component of most American schools at that time was very small. It was 10%, and you ended up getting ghettoized over there. And the third is this whole concept of study groups.
This is the best of what the Americans have created in terms of the case study method, the college, the professors, the 2 years, the internship, everything put together, but in a context that is much more international. And then, of course, as I said earlier, being in London is being in London. You can't, very few cities can compete with that.
Can you think of your favorite class or your favorite professor and what it was and how it had an impact on you and why?
There's a very famous professor called Gary Hamel who wrote Competing for the Future. He was teaching us strategy at that time. So you're reading Michael Porter and you're learning with Gary Hamel was just fabulous experience.
One of the classes was about decisions and risk management. And one thing it taught me, which probably I use maybe, it comes up in my daily business life, which is a principle that, you should never mix bad decisions with bad outcomes.
At Reach Ivy, as you saw, we have a strong advisory board and we access them very frequently. Is there anyone from the LBS alumni network that you perceive as a mentor or as an advisor?
I came back to India. India was still at the cusp of opening up. And remember, there were no FIIs in India in 1990. And a lot of the firms that I reached out to had alumni from LBS. And dealing with someone who carried the same card from your business school made a big difference.
Small things like one of the businesses I started, which is creating infrastructure for the broadband industry. Now that I'm in there, I find that one of my likely potential customers who run one of the largest broadband businesses is actually a classmate of mine from LBS.
What kind of support is available by the alumni network here in India for them?
The boss of the Tata Group, Cyrus Mistry, is from LBS. Kumar Mangalam Birla is from LBS. The Piramals, pretty much the whole family are from LBS. The Raheja clan, Rajan side as well as Chandru Raheja's sons, they're all from LBS. So these are people one is friendly with in any case. Yeah? They're not people who are going to show up in average forums, but they're all available. You write an email to Pratik, to me, always you get answers back.
3 months ago, the dean came down and hosted all the alumni for drinks in the evening and just updated them with the school. They've started a couple of programs here, executive ed programs here in India. So it's definitely quality, not quantity for LBS. It's you get high quality interactions with people who are alumni.
Can you take us back to your early days in INAM and share with us some anecdotes on the early days so that people have a sense of what INAM looked like in the yesteryears?
I remember when I said I will leave the family business and go into stockbroking, people thought I was stark raving mad. That are you kidding me that इतना पढ़ लिख के इसलिए आया है कि जाके शेयर मार्केट में time waste करेगा अपना. So that's what NAM was back then for most people. And NAM was literally an idea and a 5-man shop that we want to back people who are building the new India. And the advantage of coming with this MBA background was this, that it was a movie you had seen abroad. I would like to contrast people who back then thought, oh, I should have gone abroad, taken up a job abroad, or come here and join some multinational. If you do the conventional thing, you'll get conventional results. You do the unconventional thing, you'll get results which make you happy. That's the takeaway for NAM. And we led what I call a happy, balanced family life while we were having fun at work. And that's really what the firm was all about.
Given the various opportunities you had with the Vedanta Group, why did you pick infrastructure of the opportunities available?
My thought process was, that one thing that I learned in B school is that most of the so-called glamorous and, excuse my language, some of the sexy businesses are often not good businesses to be in, as we're seeing today. So I said, let's just go as boring as possible, Old economy, simple, low risk, medium return business is where I felt that, essentially the idea was to avoid a big disaster because there's so many stories of people coming back from abroad, foreign degree leke aaya hai, destroyed the family's money, and so I just want to avoid that. That was my core goal at that point. So when I came back, I just said that, that seems interesting, what's happening in infrastructure. And around then, the company had, the group had already built a large skill set in doing large projects in India, raising capital, doing project management, procuring, and just sort of, should put 2 and 2 together. If I can build infrastructure business using some of those skill sets and yet stand a lower chance of destroying capital, then there's a win-win situation. So that's essentially how it started.
What is the vision for Axis Capital over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's all done and dusted. We already went and raised $1 billion for Axis Bank itself earlier this month. And if you manage on the principles of Lakshmi, Durga, Saraswati, most people will fall somewhere in between. That someone wants a pat on the back, someone wants the check in the bank, someone wants, I want to learn something new. And if you can get that combination right, you're going to be all right. And that's how we've done it for all these years, and I suspect it works.
In terms of infrastructure, what are some of the bottlenecks you're seeing in India in your business? And what are some of the policies that you envy of international governments that you hope the Indian government would imbibe here?
When they get the system right, they deliver good assets. I would say the one single change that I'd like to see that can be the next breakthrough is coming out of this, what we in the industry call the L1 mentality, which is give the project to the guy who bids the lowest. If the government can come out of that thinking and say that we will give the projects to the team that can deliver it, even if it's not the lowest bidder, then I think it's very hard to do that, and few countries have done it. But that can be the big change that's needed right now.
What is your secret for success? What is the mantra? What is it that you do that the others, all of us in the room, fail to do?
Basically, just buy cheap and buy assets which you think you want to own forever. You usually will not go wrong. So no great rocket science in it, I'm sorry. There's no MBA answer to this.
Two things. One thing is focus. Second one, which is kind of similar, is that if something appears too good to be true, it most definitely in India is too good to be true.
How early do you think one should start navigating the study abroad process? And what do you think is the right time to do an MBA?
From a getting ready perspective, they should come very early to someone like you. Because even getting the resume and the application packaged right is not something you can do just when you're about to send the application off. So
if you delay your MBA by about 3 years, I think you could double your takeaway from MBA.
How do you think people should think through this process? How do you think they should pick their recommenders? What's the thought process behind picking the right recommender?
There is evidence of history which points to what will change in this resume after 2 years is that a new line will be added that it's an MBA from so-and-so institution. That's all that's going to change. So they're going to judge where is this person heading. Then they want a validation of that from someone who's actually dealt with that person.
Could you share some insights on entrepreneurship, some lessons for all the budding entrepreneurs in the room?
I don't think you can make an entrepreneur just the way you can't make an army general or the way you can't make a politician. It's an attitude, it's a state of mind.
I'll just say one thing that I learned pretty much in B-School, which was in the Entrepreneurship 101 class by John Mullins, which is, if you're starting off something, I think the mistake people make are, they don't question which is the unmet need in the market that I'm fulfilling. You can just answer that question and get it right each time, then you should stick to it and do it.
Any final words of advice for any of the parents sitting in the room here?
So as long as you go to school, pick those right classes, go to the hard classes, and challenge yourself, you'll get as much out of your MBA as you would if you were in a number 1 or a number 50 school, I think. So I think it's more important to do it at the right time than to go to the right school.
When my son went abroad, there was someone from another family who mentioned to his daughter who had applied that, "Beta, देखो 15,000 रुपया रोज का लग रहा है, तो वो भी सोचो कि आज मन नहीं है अपने क्लास में जाना." Parents are spending a lot of money to send you, so it's easy to laugh, but you have no business not being in your classroom and taking the most of that out when you're there.